Hello, hello, good morning. It is a Friday morning. It's a Friday morning, and the temperature currently is. Hold on. If I'd known I was going to be doing a quote unquote bit, I would have prepared more. Friday morning, sunny and 69 degrees here in Northern California, the heart of the Central Valley. Sort of. Oof, 100 today. Oh man, 104 tomorrow, and then it dips down to 95. I don't understand the weather. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on with the weather. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so we're a little unusual doing two streams. In fact, I'm going to be babbling a little bit longer in my preamble because I didn't bother to put any messages out about this. So, first stream, sorry if you can hear the typing, of the day starting now. Starting now with some Squiggle Art. Okay, so basically we're going to be doing two streams today. I'm going to be doing two streams today. I'm going to be doing the first one is going to be a Squiggle Art stream. I like these. I used to do these a lot as kind of a practice thing years ago. But this is kind of something that children can do. And adults can do too. I think this is fun as an adult, but you know, this is also something that you can do with children who want to be creative. This is a very simple exercise, and actually the best part about this type of thing is if you're a parent and you're drawing with your child, or you want to, or they want to share the experience, either way, there really is no bad version of this, and it's extraordinarily low effort. Now, I call this Squiggle Art. There's probably a name for this type of thing, because I've seen other people do it, but I just call it Squiggle Art. So there's going to be two streams. My first stream is going to be a Squiggle Art stream. And that's really going to be aimed at kids and, you know, something fun for kids. But again, I'm doing this as an adult and I enjoy it. So this is a perfectly valid thing to do you could do this yourself. I'm certainly not saying this has to be for kids. Again, this was to me a nice kind of practice thing, especially this was something that I used to do a lot in between when I would get stuck on something. So if I was trying to do an image and I couldn't get it right, I would do these little Squiggle Art exercises as a way to just be able to draw something, you know. So in some ways you could look at it as a sort of comfort zone type of thing, because since it's not a structured image, you don't have to worry about it being correct or right or a mistake. It's creating something out of randomness. We're going to take a random squiggle and turn it into some kind of image. Now, typically I end up making mine into monsters. Not for any particular reason. Generally just the shapes that I draw seem to give themselves over to be monsters more than anything. So let me just copy a link here, because like I said, I was not smart and didn't actually send all this out ahead of time. Not that it matters. I mean, it really doesn't. But let's see. You can watch... Spelling. Spelling is fun. Someday I'll get spelling right. Maybe when I'm 90, I'll learn to spell. You can watch right here. Okay, and paste the link, and let's copy this whole thing and copy it, and bang. That's there. And let's paste that in here. And so this is going to be a two-stream day. Did I already put that? Oh, no, let me delete the old one and paste that. Okay. And so the first stream is going to be the Squiggle Art stream, which we're going to do for a little bit here. And then I'm going to, because I got some sort of surprising and not surprising, but I worked on a project for Wizards of the Coast last year. I don't even remember how long. It was a while ago. So I did some work for them for an upcoming card set, which they've thankfully now announced. So I don't have to be secretive about at least part of it anymore. I'm still under an NDA for some of it, but I can, now that they've revealed the actual card set and one of my cards, I can talk about the actual set that I worked on and the card that I worked on, which is a card called Shieldred. Now, I'll be honest, I don't really know much about... I think Magic... I don't play the card game. So when they approached me about this, which was astonishingly out of the blue, which I'm not complaining, but it was one of these things where the art director happened to see my work over on the Adobe Behance site and thought I was a good fit for this set of cards they were doing. But I mean, I never in a million years would have expected somebody to pick me to do something like this, because Wizards is a big deal. Or Magic, I should say. Wizards is the company, and then I believe Hasbro is the parent company. But anyway, I would never have guessed that they would find me on I mean, I guess that's an art director's job, so don't get me wrong. This is exactly what they're supposed to do. But I didn't think they'd pick me to do anything. Oh, by the way, just as a quick aside, I have finally updated this background image. It's not drastically different, but it is different than it was before. I finally actually remembered before I started the stream to update the background image. So now you see a little more lines, and the little thing underneath the pen, that little piece of cloth I've extended upwards so it didn't look like the pen was bleeding onto the jacket. Anyway, that was just a quick thing, because I finally actually did it. So anyway, I'll give a brief kind of preview of what the later stream is going to be, which is, let me do my little starting soon thing here, and I'll show you. So I'm going to do a stream later where I'm going to run through the actual process of how I created this image. Now, more or less, I have a time-lapse video that's already created, which I will be uploading, which I've been sitting on for months now, because I have had to be quiet about this. Lots of people deal with lots of NDAs. I'm not one of those people. I'm not used to it. So it's a very strange thing for me, psychically, to not be able to say anything about what is what is the most significant professional artwork I've ever done in my life. To just have to sit on it for a long time. And that's okay. I mean, it's fine. Oh, of course, this thing faded out. Well, give me a second and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But it was a strange, oh, you know what? I bet I know what I did. Hold on a minute. Let me do this. Hold on. Didn't I just do this? It must have timed out. Give me a second. No, not the banner. Where's the actual, here it is. Oh, I know, I didn't do this part. So I don't know if you're seeing all this, but it'll be fast anyway. Okay, there we go. So let's say, go back to here. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Right. All right, so here's the image. So to get something of this magnitude, for me anyway, and not be able to say anything about it for, I think it has to be close to a year. I didn't go look at my emails because I went, I've had so many emails back and forth. That was tough because this took a lot of work. It took a lot of time. It was great. So I'd say that up front. It was, because you hear a lot of horror stories about commissioned work with individuals and companies. That was not my experience whatsoever with either the art director or the company. They were extraordinarily great to deal with, to the point, because at first I was, admittedly, I'll just tell you, I was terrified about it, because I thought, okay, this is going to be, I mean, I wasn't going to turn it down because it's a big deal, but I was dreading having one of these terrible experiences where it was going to be a lot of just back and forth and bad decisions, because that's one thing that other people I've talked to who do this work will talk about, is that they have to do work that they know is terrible work. Don't get me wrong, you're getting paid, you do the work, so don't misunderstand. I would have done it, but it's nice to be able to do something that I can actually be proud of the final product from top to bottom and not know that there's something that I think is a terrible idea that got done anyway. So this is the Shieldred, if I'm pronouncing that right, image, which they have announced, so I can talk about this one. So later on, I'm going to be going through on my second stream, which will probably be, it's about 9:45 here on the Pacific Coast. I don't know what the time is where you are. And hello to the 2 viewers who are viewing. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. So I will be going through this as far as the stages, because I wasn't messing around with this. I did not want to do a bad job. So there are lots of layers to this. I'm not going to cover every single one, because otherwise it would be a 17-hour stream, and I mean, there are streams that are long because they're for charity or something like that, but just me babbling for 17 hours is not interesting to anybody. So the second stream will cover this in probably a couple hours. But this stream is going to be, like I said, a squiggle stream. So let's go ahead but this is the image that I'll be talking about. And you'll see it in many different forms. Starting from the sketches, kind of going through. Hey, Will, how you doing? Actually, thank you, Will, for having a username that tells me who you are. Some people, they have usernames and I can't recognize who they are. So they come in and if they don't say anything, I can't say hello with a name. I don't care, man. Have whatever name you want, but it makes it tough it makes me, I mean, I could say hello XYZ1701, I guess, but you know, when I know who it is or if there's a name, it's a lot easier. So hello, Will. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, I'll be doing this later. So we'll be covering that later, but this is just going to be a squiggle thing. This is just going to be kind of a fun warm-up thing. So let's see here. Let me do a new. We'll just do a new. Where's a square canvas? We'll do 12 by 12. Not that it literally has to be 12 by 12. Make your canvas whatever size you would like. Thank you. I am doing very well because I can talk about some of my artwork for once. So I'm doing great. I have no complaints on this. Well, not till it gets to 100 degrees. Or, I guess 100... All right, let me think about this. Celsius would be around, I'm saying, 38, 39 for 100 Fahrenheit. I could be doing that wrong because math is probably my worst possible thing. So I have that. Maybe I have that roughly right. I know around 40 is like 100 plus. So let's say 38, 39. So right now it's not anywhere near that. It's only about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So whatever that is in Celsius. So it's not bad. So I'm doing very well. I have my water. I have a ton of caffeine in my system. I have a blank canvas. I can't complain about nothing. So, all right, here we go. Why did it put the... Oh, it's got the chat in behind. I'll fix that. Okay. So, squiggle. Right? Let me just see what the size of my pen is. Oh, way too small. We need this bigger. So again, this is something that the nice part about this type of thing is that's a good size. This is all ages, all access. Doesn't matter what your skill level is. If it's just, yeah, you're pretty much bang 37. Okay, not bad. So this will not do anything for the high school teachers who looked at my failing grades and probably wanted to put my head through a wall. But at least it only took me 40-something years to figure out how to do math, roughly. So this is a kind of broad spectrum type of thing. It's a fun exercise. Again, you can do it with children if you have, and really doesn't matter age. Because again, you can't mess this up. You really can't. And all you do is you take a blank canvas, whether it's a piece of paper or not, doesn't have to be square like this, and you make a squiggle of some kind. And generally you can do it in parts if you want, but I just do one continuous one. So you do something like this. Okay, well, I do like to have a closed thing, so let's go ahead and close it. Actually, no, let's not close it. This is the whole point, is not to worry about it, right? So there's your squiggle. That's your starting image, which looks like nothing. So now the exercise is to make this look like something. And most times, and I'm just going to do another one to illustrate, but I'm going to use the one I did first. So if I clear this out, right, most times, so we do a squiggle like this, and you do different lines inside. Most times what's going to happen is your mind will ascribe some type of starting thing to whatever you make, right? So this one... I don't know, what would I look at that and think of? I'd almost look at that and see a ghost that is taking notes. That doesn't make any sense to look at it this way, but that's the first thing I thought of, is like Casper the Ghost taking notes on a notepad. But let's go back to the original one. We could save that one for another time. So let's go to our... Now this one, the first squiggle, the initial one here, this immediately looks like some kind of serpent or snake or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and... Let's see here, because you can do it a couple different ways. You can literally just start working on... In fact, you know what? If the whole point of this is that there are no mistakes, we'll use the Bob Ross method. We're not going to worry about what it actually is going to look like. We're just going to go into it like you would with pen and ink on a piece of paper. So this is completely simulating what you would do on pen and ink. So again, not worrying about whether it's right or not, or correct. This is not supposed to be realistic. This is not supposed to be anything other than a creative exercise for your mind. So we're going to go with the snake idea. And just as a kind of telestrator thing, just so you can see kind of the thinking on that, it's because a lot of artwork, there's different ways to approach it, but one of the major ways is to think of a shape and how that shape relates to whatever you're trying to do. So the reason I come up with a serpent is because a snake, a very simple snake, looks like this, with little curls and a tail, right? So this is This is a very simplified snake, but there, let's say that's the eyes, and let's say this is a rattle. It's a rattlesnake, and there's the coils. And you can see the shape is almost there. I mean, that's pretty much like a snake shape. So that's why, for my mind, it went straight to a snake. Now, if you didn't see a snake, if you saw something else, that's perfectly fine. In fact, you might like the shape better like that. And you could make that. That could be, again, just as a quick example, this could be some kind of creature with a boxing glove that's punching upwards and hitting someone in the face. That's fine. Make it whatever you want, but I'm going to stick with my original thing. That's what I mean about this is a purely creative exercise. You don't have to worry about a thing. So we're going to make this a snake. So we'll give the snake one of my things that I do very well. And you can do this or you don't have to do this. Is you start with something you're comfortable with or start with something that you're not. I like drawing eyes. Eyes are fun for me. So let's go ahead and give the snake some eyes. Well, an eye, because the way the head's going to be for me, he's only going to have one eye visible. So we'll go ahead and draw an eye, and we'll make this an angry snake. Give him an eye. And I'm not even going to worry about doing perfect circles or anything, because again, the idea with this is that you're not worrying about doing everything the right way. And I'm going to use one pen size, because again, the goal with this is to have this be exactly what you could do with a piece of paper and just a normal ballpoint pen. You can use a pencil if you want, so you can replace this with pencil. If you want to do shading, that type of thing, you can absolutely do that. But the idea here is I'm trying to make this the way anybody could do it, whether they have an iPad or not. So I don't want to have this be a technical barrier, because in my other streams, a lot of times, I'm using the iPad, and I have the advantage of the iPad with all the different things it can do. Not worrying about that with this. So let's go ahead and we'll give, I like with eyes to do a little bit of shading around them. So I like to have a little bit of fill in here. Again, I'm not going to worry about having clean lines or anything, because this is meant to just be kind of fun. But you do that, just putting a little bit of black around an eye. Now you can clean up edges. You can do that. I'm not saying you can't. So I can do this to make the eyeball look straighter, just like that. So when you put a little bit of black around the eye, it pushes the eye in a little bit, gives it a little bit of depth, just a bit. So you don't have to do that if you don't want your snake to be mean. You can definitely make him a happy snake. You don't have to make him mean. This is just, and mine's not even really mean. It's just kind of like snakes are, I don't know. I'm not necessarily scared of snakes, but I certainly respect them, especially if they have fangs. And a rattle. If you see a snake with a rattle on its tail, go the other way. Run. Well, maybe don't run. Slowly back away, keeping your eyes on it. Just general tip. You don't want to go near things that make noise when it comes to snakes. Hissing, rattling, any of that stuff to be avoided in general. Not to say snakes are bad, universally, just saying there are certain things that indicate, perhaps, you don't want to get near one. Okay, so we'll continue on, and we'll do a little bit of a, I'm not going to worry about that. We'll do a little bit of a line here. So we'll give a little bit of lines. You could do little lines like that. You can, not that snakes have eyebrows, but this is cartoony, so we're not worried about it. We'll give them a little bit of a nostril down here, right? And let's see. Do we want our snake to have a mouth? No. I was going to give him a mouth, but what I'm going to give him is a tongue. Snakes do have tongues. Now you can, a squiggle thing doesn't have to be completely within the boundaries of the lines. You can go outside them. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'm going to give this snake wings and make him a little winged serpent. So you don't have to be completely constrained with this. So we'll give him a nice little forked tongue. We'll just come and like do this, which is, again, this is probably not anatomically correct for anybody who, knows snakes. And you want to give a little bit of shading to show that it's coming from underneath the mouth. And you could put a little line right here to show that it's a tongue. So now we have a snake with a little tongue sticking out. And let's see. So let's go down to the bottom and we're going to do kind of a, how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? Let me think about this, because I'm going to try, let me think about this. We're going to give him, well, let's give him the end of the tail here. And we won't make this a rattlesnake, so he's not too terrifying, because like I said, avoid snakes with rattles. Do not go near snakes that are rattling. Bad. Look at them, but look at them as you're backing away. Okay, so let's go ahead and join, just because, I mean, a snake that looked like this would be in a lot of trouble. It would. This is a snake that's not going to be having a good time, because I don't think a snake's body is supposed to bend this way. So while it doesn't have to be realistic, let's make it not look like it's some kind of space-time inverted snake. Let's make it look like somewhat of a snake. So we're going to go ahead and join. That's what I mean about you don't have to work specifically within the lines. Just give that a nice little curve. Right now that looks a little better. And then, and we'll address that X and everything. You know, we're not going to get rid of anything because, again, I'm treating this like it's paper. So I'm not going to do anything special with the actual iPad stuff or anything that you couldn't do on a piece of paper. So this is all going to be the same way. And this is a good exercise, not only because it's just a fun one, that you don't have to worry about it being correct or anything like that, but also because it's one of the things that, at least I always learned from our teachers, was a good way to develop your artistic ability is to be able to work around quote-unquote mistakes. Now, whether those are mistakes that you make as you're doing something or something like this, not really a mistake, but this squiggle doesn't necessarily look like a snake because it's bent in this middle part. See this here? These bends make it look a little weird. But you can work around those because you can make those into things. And that's kind of a fun part. And the nice part about that is you can get unanticipated, neat images that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten if you had done everything as you thought it was correct. So let's go ahead and give the snake an arc here so it looks like the body is bending. I'm doing this upside down, so I may... Well, but you know what? That's the... Okay, so now at least, yes, that there's a line in the middle, okay, but it looks kind of like a snake would look, you know, where there's a natural arc to the way the body goes. See, that's what I mean about the shape. That makes sense. You could actually envision seeing a snake in this type of form. Maybe not with these weird X lines in the middle of it, but we'll get to that. So there's your snake. Now, let's see what we want to do. So we're going to give the snake a little bit of a kind of, I don't know what it's called. I guess you would call it, I don't know, body form or something. I don't know. So we're going to give it, now this is going to be a little tricky, but basically we're going to have it, well, I'm just going to draw it and I'll explain in a minute. But I'm going to stop talking for a second because since I'm not correcting any errors, I want to be careful with this. So give me a second. Okay. Here we go. We're going to wrap that up here. And we're going to see if we're going to try to figure out a way to cover up that X thing. I think I may have a way to do it. Okay. So, how do we make the X thing look like it actually is on purpose? When I say the X thing, I mean this. From the initial squiggles. So how do we make these look like they are maybe not intentional? We're not trying to fool anybody. We're not going to pretend we did it on purpose, but try to integrate it into the image so it doesn't stick out too much. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to make these X's, quote-unquote X's, part of the snake's kind of pattern. Now, this doesn't have to be perfectly even or anything like that. Again, that's not the point. But what we're doing here is we're kind of establishing that these are a pattern on the snake's body. And we'll do a little bit of other stuff too to make this look more natural. But see, I'm just making basically diamonds. I've taken this side, as you can see here. So I've taken this X and I've made this line and this line the sides of a triangle, or not a triangle, a diamond. And now I'm just making more diamonds to create a repeating pattern. So already, we've somewhat covered up the fact that this X is from the initial squiggle. Now, there's more stuff to do, but that's a starting point. And that's what I mean about you're just kind of, you're not trying to fool anybody per se. It's not really that, but it's more of trying to make it look to the eye more natural. Now, what I could have done if you had a pencil and you wanted to is you could have done like a kind of a line here to get, you know what, you don't even have to, forget that. You don't need to do it. This is a fun drawing. Don't worry about it. So we'll just keep the diamonds going down. This is not something where we're worried about precision. We're really not. This is just going to be a good time. Okay, so there's the end of our, so there, we've created this diamond pattern. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. It's, you know, but again, this image, the idea is not to be perfect. So now, here's the tricky bit, which I will be honest with you, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this work correctly, but I'm going to try it. So the idea now is, okay, we've managed to camouflage. I'll use a fun word for what we're doing. We've managed to camouflage this X with the diamond pattern. So we have to try to do that if we want to keep this going and try to make it eventually look like this was never a squiggle. That's kind of what I'm going for here, is to take something that started out as a random squiggle and have it end up not looking like a squiggle, so that you could show this to somebody and they'd think you planned it all along. I mean, that's just a fun thing, is to know yourself that you never planned it this way, but you actually made it look that way. That's just fun. So now we have to, I'm going to use this as an illustration point. So we're going to try to follow the flow of the body this way, right? Where that arrow is. That's the idea. Or actually, maybe this is clearer without getting mixed in. So we're going to try to keep the flow of the body. So with the snake, since we've already got this arc here that we've got, which is kind of the belly of the snake, but it's partially exposed. So you're seeing the underside of the snake. Whereas if the snake was laying flat along the ground like this, okay, it looks just like a line, but let's say this is the head of the snake and this is the snake's tail. Right here on the ground, here's the ground. Here, we'll get some grass. This part here is this diamond pattern. That's what we're doing. So you're giving it a little bit of dimension. Let me erase these. And that's kind of the idea, is we're adding a little bit of dimension to it, and at the same time, we're covering up the fact that we, had a squiggle there. So this is the tricky bit, is to make this look. Now, give me a minute, because I'm just doing this in my head. Okay. Because what I want to do is I want to wrap this, and we're going to do a bit of a cheat here. So I'm going to show you something where, again, this is covering up something, but the goal will be to have it somewhat look like you did it on purpose. So there's no real good way, in my mind, to make this line arc upwards like this. It's going to look too distorted. And at the same time, I want to cover up this line, because there's no way to make this line arc this way without it being really weird looking. So we're going to do two things at once. Now, the benefit is, by using a diamond pattern, you can kind of do a diamond pattern however you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a shadow. And that shadow is going to be filled in with black, and it's going to cover some things up. So let's see how we want to do this. We're going to do it like this. We're going to take this existing line, and we're going to rebend it by creating a second line. Okay? So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to take this line, and we're going to, well, yeah, that's okay. Let me get in close. Because on your paper, you'd be able to lean in. So we're going to take this line, and we're going to arc it way down. Hold on. And then we're going to take another line from here, and we're going to just curve this up to meet that line, somewhat like that. Okay? So this is all going to get filled in. So I'm putting X's where the black will be. So we're going to fill this in. And that allows us to then take this line right here, and we're going to bend it up like this. Oh, wait. Sorry, hold on. Well, yes. So we're going to bend it up like that. And then we'll put another one right there. Yeah, that's too sheer, though. So let me think about that, because that's too much of a diamond. Ah, okay. Hold on. Let's see. If we create a second shadow right there to go to that, then I think we can do, I mean, I'm doing this, I'm winging it here, so it's not going to be perfect, but let's see how that looks. So if we create two shadows, so if we fill this in, I mean, that's what I mean by you're trying to do something. It doesn't necessarily, it's always going to be, it's going to work perfectly. So we're going to take a line right there. I'm not going to worry about that other line, because again, this is just supposed to be fun. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to fill in a lot there. So let's assume, let's just take this. We're going to color that in. And again, I'm not worrying about, the idea is supposed to be that this would be the same thing you could do with a pen. So we're just going to put some shadows in here. Okay. And we'll put some shadows in here. I'm just coloring this in using the Apple Pencil. Now, normally, if I was doing this on one of my other streams, I would switch pen sizes. So in other words, if you wanted to, you could take and this is something you might do at home, you could take a marker. And you could take like a Sharpie, and you could do this with a Sharpie. It doesn't have to be one pen. So let's imagine you grabbed a marker and you did this quicker, because, why not? It's just black. So it's not like you have to use a thin pen for black. You're just filling it in. So, okay. There we go. So we've done some shadow. Now we can't have just one area with shadows. I mean, you could, but it doesn't look great. So what we're going to do is now we're going to create some more shadows because we're already doing that. So why not? So let's create a shadow right here. Kind of a little bit where the snake's body folds. And you can do this where you're doing X's. If you don't want to color them all in at the same time, you want to come back to that. Use the X's. And then we'll do a little bit at the bottom because the tail is going to be towards the ground and there will be a shadow on the ground. So we'll do that. There we go. And I think that's going to be all for the shadows. That's probably as much as we have to do for big shadows. So, okay, let's go ahead and do this. And we'll fill this in. And what we're going to do is once we have the basics of the snake, then we're just going to start doing some weird fun stuff. Because, and now, okay, so here's a good example with the shadow, right? So the shadow's coming out here. And the tail is a little blunt. See how that end there, a little blunt? Now, because we're filling it in with shadow anyway, let's go ahead and make that a little more circular. So we'll do this and curve it, and we'll bring it right in there and there. And you can just keep doing that with the, you can keep making the tail longer and just bring it in. So that you can, you know, smooth it out and make it have more of a pointed tail. And then in the end, like I said, when you show this to somebody later, they're not going to know that that wasn't like that. You don't have to. You can leave the blunt tail if you want. And it's fine. You absolutely do not have to put that, a sharper tip on the tail like I did. If you don't want to, leave it whatever you want to be. Now, there's a couple ways you can do shadows when they intersect with things. So if you look here, again, I'll use this as a bit of an illustrator. You can see the shadow kind of follows the line of that X, like that. Now, you can just blacken that in if you want. You can make it just black. Or if you want it to still sort of look like the diamond, you can do cross-hatching, where you just do little lines like this. And see, you can, it still kind of looks like there's a shadow there, but you're leaving some of it transparent so you can see the diamonds through it. Completely up to you. You can do it or not do it. Doesn't matter. Now, we do have this kind of, we have this weird thing happening here. So let's see how we can fix that. Let's see what the best way to fix that is. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a join point or a connection on the shadow. So we're just going to create a little loop here, and we're going to fill this in. And that's going to solve a whole bunch of things all at once. Now, we got rid of some of those weird lines that were there, and we made the shadow have a bit of an arc to it. So it looks like, in some ways, it is echoing the snake's head. See, because there's this point in that blackness where it would be totally black because the body is bending. And you can see that if you take a light and curl your finger. So if you take your finger and you, and I'm going to draw a very quick finger. So if you take your finger and you just bend it like that. Sorry, that's a very crude drawing of a finger. But let's say this is your finger. And you have a light over here that's shining down. If you do this with a lamp or whatever, you're going to notice that there are parts of your finger that are going to be very dark. You know, you're going to have different shadows. So this part here, the in-between of these two big forms, is essentially what this is. Because you have the body down here, you have the head up here. We're assuming the light's coming from this direction. And so, now realistically, you know, again, we're not going for total realism here. It doesn't have to look completely perfect. In that scenario, you know, we would, and actually we can do it. It really doesn't matter. So what you would do is, if the light is right overhead, like this, okay? Let me take all this stuff out so we can just get back to what we're doing. So let me take all that off. So if the light's coming from here, or in a similar area, which is kind of what we've got going on because the shadows are here, which would be from the head. Okay? Whoops. All right, there we go. So the actual snake's head would also make a shadow. So you can actually just draw the snake's head as a shadow and then join it into that. And see, now, similar to what we did before, you can have it where instead of doing pure black on the diamonds, if you want it to look a little different, you can do these hatch lines. Something like that. And that, see, that shows, because we're following what is here is mirroring what is here in the shape. Now, if you want, you absolutely can color that in, and we'll do that. And since we're pretending this is paper, that's now going to be permanent, so I'm not going to undo that, and that's okay. it's not a problem. So you do that, and now we have the snake's head is over the body. See? So we're kind of mirroring things. And actually, depending on how you want to look at it, you can do that here too, where we can have a little bit of shadow coming here. Kind of have that same bit of a loop right there. And actually, now that I think about it, just so that the tail doesn't look kind of plain, let's go ahead and give the tail some rattle lines. So you just do big lines like this. And that doesn't have to be a rattle, but that kind of looks like a rattle. So there you go. So now the snake has a rattle, so now it is a mean snake. Okay, so let's see. And so for the back, we've got this kind of weird line sticking out here. Well, many snakes have patterns on the front and back. So all we got to do to make this seem like it's a repeating pattern is do that. And now do another line like this. And so now it looks like the snake has the diamond on the belly and on the back. And now that line doesn't look like it's just kind of out of nowhere. It looks like it's supposed to be there. So it's been about 30 minutes or, I don't remember how long I talked at the beginning, but about a half an hour. You took this, that's just the squiggle that we started with, and we made that. So from that to that. Probably forgot what the squiggle looked like to begin with, right? Because I did. I didn't remember until I just looked at it. But that was our initial squiggle. And in no time at all, we made that. And now, this is where it gets fun for kids. Now you can just start putting goofy stuff on the snake. Because again, this doesn't have to be realistic. So, would you like your snake to have a top hat? Sure. So let's put a top hat on it. Because top hats, I've been told that kids enjoy top hats on animals and people. So let's go ahead and give the snake, now I'm doing this just kind of off the cuff, but let's do a nice hat here, and there's the hat. I mean, that's not the hat yet, but let's give him a little top hat, a little silly snake top hat. So let's do that, and we'll do a curve, and we'll come down, and let's color that in. Give him a little top hat, just like we would on a piece of paper. There we go. And we can leave that little spot to show that the hat's going behind his head, which is ridiculous because no snake would be wearing a top hat. Now, if you want something you can do with a top hat, because top hats typically are shiny. So we've got the ribbon is right here, and you can put a little square there if you want to put the little ribbon square. And then you can create a very simple reflection, so it looks like there's light, by doing I switched to an eraser. Sorry, that's my fault. You can just do something like this. Just draw a little squiggle there. And then you color everything else around that squiggle black. And right away, you have created a bit of a reflection for the hat. You don't have to do that. You can make it all black if you want. That's definitely not a requirement. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And the temptation is to do a monocle. But I did a monocle I've done a monocle before. So we're going to leave the snake is not going to have a monocle. I mean, I really don't care. The snake can have a monocle, but if you want to put a monocle on your snake, go for it. I'm not going to put a monocle on my snake, but I am going to give him a mustache. So now, let's see. Let's give him a fancy curled mustache. There's one side, and there's the other. So now our snake has a fancy curled mustache. Because why not? Your mustache can look the same or different. So now we have a snake in a top hat with a mustache. What else? What other goof? Oh, I said I was going to give it wings. Let's give the snake some wings because who cares? Okay, so we're going to put the wings we'll put them about here, about halfway down. Now we're going to do one wing that's coming out on the left side and the right side. The left side, because the snake is, as you can see, you can only see one of the snake's eyes. And his other eye is back here, but you can't see it. The wings are going to function much the same way, where we're going to see more of one, the side that's facing us, this side, than we will of the other, which will be this side. So let's draw the one that's facing away. And all you do, real easy, if you want something to look like it's behind or not, the way you create depth, there's different ways, but a simple way is by size. Things that are bigger are closer, things that are smaller are farther away in general. So if you look at an apple, right? And no, that's a very, oh boy, that's a terrible apple. Let's make it an orange. Here's an orange. And here's the orange with a little leaf on it, okay? That orange, if I were to draw a table, I'm doing this very roughly, so actually that's a bad example of the table. Here, you know what? I did this bad right from the beginning. Let's create a table first. So here is a table, right? And I'm going to make it where, let me stretch that out. Okay, here's the table. Now again, this is just very simple. So here's the table. You can imagine this a kitchen table, whatever. This is the far end of the table, and this is the close end. So if you were looking at it, let's say there's a table leg, there's a table leg, there's a table leg. You can't see the other one, okay? If you draw two oranges on this table, actually, what's something that's a, orange is fine, but I'm gonna fill it in. So I'm gonna make it, it's gonna be basically a black circle. Okay, how about bowling balls? If you have two bowling balls on a table, let's put the little holes, right? So there's a bowling ball. Okay, there's one, and then here's the other. If you think about this, if you saw three bowling balls, and you know, this is not a great bowling ball, but whatever, on a table, the bigger one is closer and the smaller one is further away. That's how they would look. If you were to put two things on a table, one at the end, one close, one's bigger, one's smaller. Same idea. That's all this is the same idea as that. So let's get rid of all that stuff. Bye-bye table, bye-bye bowling balls. So, now a snake's not, this is not a huge distance from the front to the back of this. So it doesn't have to be really, really big and small. You don't have to make one wing that big and one wing this big. That doesn't look right. I mean, just looking at that, you know that doesn't look right. So you just make it slightly smaller. So let's make this wing, and we're not going to make them big wings anyway. We'll make them little wings. So we'll do one wing over here, and there's the wing. And we'll just do some, okay, that's a terrible feather, but actually it's not a terrible feather. It's perfectly fine. So there's one wing, and now over here, we're going to have another wing, and it's just going to be slightly bigger. See, that's not drastically different. And you can do the same feathers. You can do your feathers if you want to make them more separated like that. You can. You can do separate feathers. That's okay. So you see there we've got, now, that by itself, already you have a small one, a large one. And that already tells you that one is on that side and one is on this side. And you can see more of this one too. You see this little curve here isn't over there. So that also indicates it. But if you want to be, you know, very clear about it, you put a little shadow on it. So just fill in a little bit of shadow right there. And you could put a little on the top if you, well, I mean, it really wouldn't go on the top because the wing would probably be clear of the head. But if you want to put a little shadow, you just put some shadows on the wings. And that also helps the idea of, okay, it's not right there. And this one, you'd also want shadow on this wing, but only because this wing is away from the body. I would only put shadows on the bottom of the feathers. And that just tells you that the feathers have a little bit of size to them. But they're, you know, see, and that does it too, because now you have the shadows, and the shadows also break it into different areas. Again, near, far. But if you want to make them both the same size, go ahead and make them both the same size. It's perfectly fine. So let's do one more thing before we finish out the stream. What's one more thing we can have? What should we have on the snake that he doesn't have? Let me think about this. What would we, something silly that the snake can have? What is something goofy the snake could be doing? Snakes don't have hands. That makes it sort of a problem. We already put wings on it. We already put a top hat on it. We already put a mustache on it. What else goofy can we put on the snake? A bow tie? I guess we put a bow tie on the snake, sure. So let's go ahead and give the snake a little bow tie. So the snake's neck is probably about right here. So we'll give it a little bow tie. It's a little close to the wings, but that's okay. I probably should have made it a little further away. But let's give him a little bow tie right there. Okay. And the bow tie will tie around to there. And now our snake has a little bow tie. I don't really know what else I could do with the snake because he doesn't have hands, he doesn't have feet, so that makes it a little tough to put stuff on him. And the only other thing... Oh, and then you could put little lines if you want. So, because if you don't want to have these empty spaces like right here, you can just put little lines, what I would call little accent lines, where you do something like that. I'll put a couple down here, and it just gives the picture a little bit of texture. Yeah, I don't know what else we could do. There's not much else we can do with a snake because he doesn't really have hands. But, okay. Actually, it doesn't matter. This is a perfectly fine drawing. It's perfectly fine for a little thing that you can do yourself. You can do it with your parents. You can do it with your kids. This is an easy way to just kind of take something, again, to remind you, that started as that. That's nothing. That's just squiggles on a paper. And didn't take all that long, really. And we went from that. Oh, you know what I'll do? Here. Ooh, this'll be fun. Let me move this. This is as much as you're going to get in special effects on this channel, really. Here we go. You went from this. Here we go. Dramatic music. Oh, and it became that. Okay, I'll admit, that was actually pretty effective. Let's do that one more time. Okay, you went from that, and then slowly, little by little, we moved it into the point where it became, and actually this is good to stop it right here. So you can see there's the squiggle. So you can see that, I'll drop down a little more. You can see this is just the same squiggle. I mean, you've watched it the whole time. But that's the thing is, if you showed somebody this, and then said it came from that, they're going to be impressed. Because that is impressive. You've taken a just nonsensical shape, and you've created that out of it. And you can do that with anything. You can do that with as many squiggles of any. You can even do it. You don't even have to be a squiggle. You could make it. You could take a circle, and you could just take a circle and make it into something. I do the squiggles because there are those fun things where it's like, okay, you know, how do I make the shadows and how do I make this happen? But you don't have to do that. If you really just want to start from a shape that you already kind of know what you want it to be, then start from that. It's okay. It doesn't have to be a squiggle. But I think this is fun. This is one of those things where it's fun, and you end up with something that's not necessarily perfect, because it isn't, but that's fine. That's part of what's fun about creativity. So yeah, from that, I'm going to do that one more time, because actually I really like that. I like this transition thing. So we go from that, and again, we ended up right with that. Yeah. So that is a very simple, and didn't take too long, less than an hour. And you don't have to do it all at once. You can go away, come back, start it before dinner, come back after dinner and do it, whatever. But anyway, that's a squiggle drawing. And that's something that I do stuff. I used to do stuff like that a lot more. I still do it, but not as much, because usually now I'm working on 3 or 4 different things and I have an idea of what they want to be. But if you're ever at a point where you're kind of, especially actually where this is really good, very helpful, is if you're trying to draw something and you're stuck. Either you're stuck because you can't get it right, or you know, you're not sure what you want to do next with it. This is a great way. One of the best things you can ever do with anything that you are working on creatively, whether it's music, whether you're writing, whether it's drawing, whatever it is don't spend too much time on it without taking a break. Not only is it good for your eyes, I'm pretty sure, and your body to not be in the same position for a long time. So I think there's a health benefit to it. But it's also good to just not look at what you're working on for a while. Because I paint almost every weekend with my wife. And I'm a terrible painter. It's just as simple as that. I'm a terrible painter. I was never good at it in school. I'm still not really good at it on my own. I'm following Bob Ross, who's a wonderful painter. If you ever want to follow somebody who paints, wonderful example of somebody who doesn't ever have a negative attitude about anything and encourages you to be creative, and that there are no actually bad creations of any kind, which I completely agree with. Creativity, the best thing about it is there really is no bad creativity. I mean, not really. Not if you're really trying to just be creative and have a good time, you're going to have a good time. So we paint along with Bob Ross, and more than once I've had a painting and I was almost at the point of just throwing it away. And as soon as I hit that point, because it just didn't look, number one, it didn't look like Bob Ross. And of course it's not going to look like Bob Ross's. He did it for so many years and perfected the way that he did paintings, that somebody who doesn't paint that much, you can't possibly expect to look like that. And that's true of everything. Again, music, writing, whatever. Don't hold yourself up to the standard of somebody who's been doing it a lot longer than you have. That's practice. You don't want to be the same either. You want your own thing. But when I'm doing these paintings and I get to a point where I get upset with what's on the canvas, what I don't like, One of the things I try to do is stop immediately, put the paintbrushes down, walk away from the painting for a good 10 minutes and just look at something else. Usually we do it outside when the weather's good, which has been most of the time. And I'll just walk out into the back lawn and I'll just look at one of the trees in our backyard. I'll just look at the tree, look at the leaves, watch them blowing in the wind. If there's a butterfly nearby, I'll just kind of watch it and I wait 10 minutes. And then I come back to the painting. And almost every single time I've done that, almost every time, it has not looked as bad to me anymore. And I figured out how I could make it look at least not terrible. That's the same thing with something like this. If you're doing anything like this and you reach a point of frustration or you don't like it, walk away from it for 10 minutes. Because 10 minutes later, you can always still throw it out if you hate it. You can still do that. That 10 minutes is not going to stop you from being able to get rid of it. But in that 10 minutes, looking at something else, there's something that happens where your perspective kind of resets. So you may come back to it, and I'm not saying you're going to come back to it and you're going to love it. You may not. I'm not going to promise you that looking at a wall for 10 minutes or reading a comic or watching something on YouTube and coming back is going to suddenly make you go, oh, I love this drawing. No, but you might see a way to fix it, or you might see something in it that you actually do like and hadn't seen before. So that's another thing, and that's where doing a little drawing like this, if you're working on something else, is also a way to disengage your brain from that picture for a little while. And that might end up being tremendously helpful, because you might come back and look at the other drawing, and now, especially if you do something silly like this, like a snake with a top hat and wings, you do something goofy like this, and then you go back to the drawing that you're working on that you're being serious about, and now it will probably look a lot better because it's not a goofy squiggle drawing. So you've kind of just taken your brain and disconnected it from the thing you were unhappy with, did something fun, and then come back, and you might find that that drawing is a lot better. Again, I'm not guaranteeing that. You might come back and it still might not look good, but at least you tried. At least you stepped away from it, and you looked at something else, and then came back. So anyway, I've now babbled on for about, 5 or 6 minutes about nothing with a picture of a snake and a top hat on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and shift over to our Be Right Back screen. Hour. I don't know why I keep saying hour. It's just me. I say hour. Anyway, so this is a fun drawing. This is just a squiggle drawing. It's a fun thing that you can do. Pen and paper. Well, I relative to, yes, I try to throw a little bit of education into each of my streams. This stream, it was, don't go near certain snakes. So yes, my goal is to be infotainment. So I'm glad you got something out of it. But yes, I will be doing another stream later, and that one will be about the magic drawing. And that's going to be less of actual active drawing and more of kind of showing the different stages of the drawing and going through it. But I know a lot of people actually like that image, which I'm over the moon about, frankly. I really am, that so many people really like it. And so this is, again, I'll have the time-lapse one, and that will be the whole, or almost the entire process of the drawing. But that's a completely different thing than talking through the process, because it might be interesting to some people to hear how that works, because this was really the first one of these I did like this. And, well, I'll get into it in that stream. I have plenty to talk about, but I'm not going to keep going on here. So, yeah, that'll probably be in about, I'm going to say 90 minutes or 2 hours. Not that that's going to matter if you're watching this later, so you don't care. That time means nothing. But anybody who's here now, it won't be too long, but I'm going to take a break. As I said, breaks are good. And I don't want to go over, I never like to go over an hour on a stream, and I'm getting dangerously close. So I'm going to shut up now. And yes, squiggle drawings are great. They're great to just spend some time on. They're great as a break from, and it's, too, it doesn't have to be the same thing. So if you're working on a music thing and you want to take a break and do a squiggle drawing, that's still just as beneficial. It's all creativity, so it's all good. Anyway, if you don't come back for the other stream, then have a great rest of your whatever it is, day, night, morning, late evening, whatever. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by. Hope this was fun to watch, and take care and be creative. All right, talk to you later.